My son's wife looked me straight in the eye and said, "Jennifer, it's time for you to find a room to rent somewhere. This house is too much for you." My son Michael nodded in agreement. I smiled and quietly left the kitchen. What they didn't know was that this house, the one they were already planning to renovate, belonged entirely to me, and in 30 days their belongings would be sitting on the curb. I'm glad to have you here with me today. Please stay until the end of my story and let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. I want to see how far this reaches. The day Michael brought Brittany home as his wife, I genuinely believed my prayers had been answered. It was 3 years ago on a crisp October afternoon in Denver. The aspens were turning gold in the mountains, and I'd spent the morning preparing their room. I chose soft blue paint for the walls. Brittany had mentioned once that blue was her favorite color. I bought new linens, white with delicate embroidery, the kind a young couple might choose for themselves. I was 60 years old, then a widow for 15 years. My husband Tom died of a heart attack when Michael was only 20. One moment we were planning Michael's college graduation party. The next, I was planning a funeral. Those years after Tom's death had been the hardest of my life. Working 2 jobs as a paralegal to put Michael through business school. Coming home to an empty house. Missing Tom so much it physically hurt. But I survived. More than survived, I built a good life. The house on Maple Street became my sanctuary. Every corner held a memory. Michael's first steps in the hallway. The kitchen where Tom made pancakes every Sunday. The rose garden we planted together still blooming every summer. "Mom, we're here!" Michael's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I rushed to the door, smoothing my hair, trying not to seem too eager. Brittany stepped out of the car first. Tall blonde with that effortless elegance some women just seem to possess. Her designer jeans probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month, but I pushed that thought away. "Jennifer," she smiled and it seemed warm enough. "Thank you so much for letting us stay here. You have no idea what this means to us." "Of course, dear." I pulled her into a hug. She stiffened slightly but returned it. "Michael told me you're saving for a house. Stay as long as you need." Michael hugged me next, lifting me off my feet like he used to when he was a teenager. My boy, my son. He'd found someone to love. That's all I'd ever wanted for him. "Let me show you the room," I said, leading them upstairs. "I repainted it. Blue. Brittany, you mentioned you liked blue." Brittany's eyes widened when she saw the room. "Oh, you didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to, and I meant it. I want you both to feel at home here." That first evening, we ordered pizza and sat around the oak dining table my mother had given me 40 years ago. Brittany talked about her job in marketing. Michael told stories about their honeymoon in Hawaii. I listened, laughed, asked questions. For the first time in 15 years, the house didn't feel so empty. The first 6 months were good. Better than good. Brittany would cook dinner occasionally, nothing fancy, but she tried. We'd watch movies together on Friday nights while Michael worked late at his accounting firm. She asked about my work as a paralegal, seemed genuinely interested in the cases I'd handled over the years. "You must have seen some crazy stuff," she said one evening, tucking her feet under her on the couch. "You have no idea," I smiled. "Remind me to tell you about the Henderson divorce case sometime. $3 million in assets and a fight over a garden gnome." She laughed. It sounded real. I started to imagine holidays together. Thanksgiving dinners. Maybe someday grandchildren running through these rooms. But looking back now, I can see when things started to shift. It was small at first. So small I told myself I was imagining it. The kitchen incident happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I came downstairs to find all my cabinets reorganized. The coffee mugs I'd kept by the coffee maker for 37 years were now on the opposite side of the kitchen. My spices, arranged alphabetically since Tom died, were now grouped by type. Brittany was making breakfast, humming to herself. "Morning, Jennifer," she smiled brightly. "I reorganized the kitchen yesterday. It's so much more efficient this way. You'll see." My hands gripped the counter. I'd organized this kitchen with Tom. Every placement had a reason, a memory. "I appreciate the thought, dear, but I had things where I wanted them." "Oh." Her smile didn't falter. "Well, you'll get used to the new system. It really is better." I didn't argue. I told myself she was just trying to help, that I was being too set in my ways. That night I reorganized everything back, but I felt guilty doing it. The Friday night incident started in April. I'd come home from my book club at 9 to find Brittany's friends scattered throughout my living room. Wine glasses on the coffee table without coasters. Someone's purse on Tom's favorite chair. Music playing loud enough that my neighbor Mrs. Patterson later asked if I was having a party. "Oh, Jennifer," Brittany called out when she saw me. "We're just having a little get-together. Hope you don't mind." She hadn't asked, hadn't given me any notice. "It's fine," I said, because what else could I say? I'll just head upstairs. "You can join us if you want," one of her friends offered, but the way they all looked at me like I was intruding in my own home made it clear I wasn't really welcome. I spent the evening in my bedroom listening to strangers laugh in my living room. When I mentioned it to Michael the next day, he sighed. "Mom, she's just trying to feel at home. You know how particular you are about things. Maybe try to be a little more flexible." Particular. The word stung. Was I being particular, or was I being pushed out of my own space? In May, Brittany redecorated the living room. I came home from work to find my furniture rearranged. The floral couch Tom and I had chosen, the one that had seemed so modern in 1987, was pushed against a different wall. She'd added throw pillows in geometric patterns that clashed horribly with the room's character. "What do you think?" Brittany asked, hands on her hips, admiring her work. "Much better flow, right?" I looked at my living room, at the space where Tom used to sit and read the newspaper, where Michael had built pillow forts as a child. All of it disrupted. "It's different," I managed. "I know change is hard," Brittany said, her voice taking on that syrupy tone people use with elderly relatives. "But sometimes we need fresh perspectives. You've been living in the past too long, Jennifer." The past. As if my memories were something to be ashamed of. I smiled and said nothing, but that night I cried for the first time in years. The comments about the house started in June. "Jennifer, don't you think this house is too big for one person?" Brittany asked one evening. We were doing dishes together, one of those moments that should have been nice domestic mother and daughter-in-law bonding. "I'm not one person anymore," I said lightly. "You and Michael are here." "Well, yes, but eventually—" She let the sentence hang. "I mean all these stairs. They must be hard on your knees." "My knees are fine, dear. I'm only 63, not 93. Of course, of course." She dried a plate, setting it in the wrong cabinet. "But have you thought about downsizing? There are lovely senior communities around here, places where you could make friends your own age. Silver Springs has an amazing craft room, I've heard." Senior communities, as if I had one foot in the grave. "I'm happy here," I said firmly. "This is my home." She didn't push it that day, but the comments continued. "Wouldn't you love a place where everything's on one floor? Think of how much easier it would be without all this upkeep. You could travel more if you didn't have to worry about this big house." Each comment felt like a tiny knife chipping away at my right to exist in my own space. By July, I noticed they'd stopped contributing to household expenses. I kept mental tallies at first: the grocery bill, the utility costs, the water, the electricity, the internet they used for Netflix every night. Michael's salary as an accountant was good. Brittany made decent money in marketing. But they never offered to pay for anything. When I finally gently brought it up to Michael, he looked uncomfortable. "We're saving for our own house, Mom. Remember, that's why we're staying here. This is temporary." "I understand that," I said carefully. "But you're both working full-time. Maybe you could contribute to groceries or utilities." "I'll talk to Brittany about it," he promised. He never did, or if he did, nothing changed. They'd been living rent-free in my house for over a year, and this was my thanks. But the worst part was watching Michael change. My son had always been kind, thoughtful, the type of boy who brought me flowers on Mother's Day with his allowance money. Now he avoided eye contact. When I tried to talk to him alone, he'd make excuses. "Brittany's waiting for me. I've got an early meeting. Can we talk about this later?" Later never came. I watched them together sometimes when they didn't know I was looking. The way Brittany would whisper something and Michael would nod. The way she'd touch his arm and he'd immediately change whatever he was saying. One evening in August, I overheard part of their conversation in the backyard. "Your mother is so resistant to change," Brittany was saying. "I'm just trying to help her, but she acts like I'm attacking her." "She's been through a lot," Michael said, but his voice was weak. "After Dad died." "That was 15 years ago, Michael. At some point she needs to move on." I backed away before I could hear more. My hands were shaking. "Move on. As if grief had an expiration date. As if loving someone meant forgetting them once enough time had passed. That night I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Really looked. When had I become old in their eyes? When had I become someone to manage to tolerate, to move aside? I was 63. I worked full-time. I walked 2 miles every morning. I had book club, garden club volunteer work at the legal aid clinic. I wasn't some fragile, senile woman who needed to be put out to pasture. But that's how they were treating me. And I was letting them. September brought a new tension to the house. I'd catch them whispering in corners. Conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. Brittany on her laptop, quickly closing it when I walked by. Michael on the phone, lowering his voice when he noticed me. They were planning something. I felt it in my bones. One Tuesday evening, I came home early from book club. Linda had canceled last minute. Her grandson had a soccer game. I pulled into the driveway at 7:30 instead of 9:30. The lights were on in the living room. I could see Michael and Brittany through the window papers spread across the coffee table. I opened the door quietly, setting my keys down without a sound. Perfect location, Brittany was saying. Once we get her to sign it over, we can finally make this place ours. Or at least get her to move out. Then we can renovate the whole thing. My blood turned to ice. I don't know, Britt. Michael's voice was hesitant. It's her house. Maybe we should just focus on saving for our own. Michael, she's living in the past. Look at this place. It's like a museum from 1987. She needs to move on. She needs something smaller, more manageable. And we need space to start our family. But how do we convince her it's her idea? We plant seeds. Don't you think the stairs are hard? Wouldn't you be happier somewhere with less maintenance? We've been doing it already. It's working. I backed out slowly, my heart hammering so hard I thought they'd hear it. I got back in my car and drove around the block 3 times before I could steady my breathing enough to come back. When I entered the house again loudly this time, calling out, "I'm home," they were sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing had happened. The papers were gone. "You're home early," Brittany said, not looking away from the screen. Linda canceled. My voice sounded normal. How was my voice normal when my world was cracking apart? "Oh, well, I made some popcorn if you want some." I went upstairs instead. Sat on my bed, staring at the wallpaper Tom and I had chosen together 20 years ago. Delicate blue flowers on a cream background. "It looks like a grandmother's house," he'd teased. "I'll grow into it," I'd replied. I pressed my palm against the wall, now feeling the texture, the permanence of it. They wanted to take my house, my home, the place where I'd loved and lost and survived and built a life, and they thought they could manipulate me into giving it up. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I went to my closet and pulled out the fireproof safe I kept hidden behind my winter coats. Inside, among birth certificates and tax returns, was the document I'd filed away 15 years ago. Property deed. Owner Jennifer Ann Sullivan. Sole owner. Tom had left me everything when he died. The house, the savings, the small life insurance policy that had kept us afloat while I raised Michael alone. I'd never added Michael's name to the deed. He'd hinted at it a few times over the years. "Mom, what happens to the house if something happens to you? Shouldn't we make sure everything's in order?" But something had always stopped me. Some instinct I couldn't name. Thank God for that instinct. I sat on my bedroom floor at 3 in the morning holding that deed and felt something shift inside me. Fear, yes. What if they became violent when they found out? What if Michael chose Brittany over me? What if I ended up alone, having lost my son in the process? But beneath the fear, something else grew. Anger. Cold, calculated, righteous anger. I had not survived Tom's death. Had not raised Michael alone. Had not worked 2 jobs to put him through college. Had not built a successful 30-year career as a paralegal. Had not maintained this house, paid every bill, mowed every lawn, fixed every leak. I had not done all of that just to be manipulated and discarded in my own home. If they wanted to play games, I would show them what a woman with 37 years of legal experience could do. The next morning I came downstairs with red eyes, some real, some performed, and a submissive demeanor. Brittany was making coffee in my reorganized kitchen, humming cheerfully. The sight made my stomach turn. But I maintained my composure. "Good morning," I said quietly, opening my laptop at the kitchen table. I'd spent the night researching, but the screen showed apartment rental listings. Brittany glanced over. "Morning, Jennifer. You okay? You look tired." I didn't sleep well. True enough. I've been thinking about what you said, about the house being too much for me. Her eyes sharpened with interest. Oh, I've been looking at some listings. I turned the laptop so she could see. There's a studio apartment near downtown. It's small, but I think it might work. I watched her face carefully, the flash of triumph she tried to hide, the quick calculation in her eyes. That's good, Jennifer. She set down her coffee mug. When would it be available? The listing says 30 days. I let my voice tremble slightly. Perfect performance. I'll need time to pack, of course. 37 years of belongings. 30 days is fine, she said quickly. Maybe even better. Gives us time to plan. Plan? The renovations she'd already mentioned to Michael. The life they were going to build in my house. I should tell you, I continued, I haven't mentioned this to Michael yet. I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision. You are, Brittany assured me, her voice dripping with false sympathy. You really are. You'll love having your own space. No responsibilities. You can join clubs, take up hobbies. It'll be like retirement living. Retirement living. I was 63 and working full-time, but sure. Retirement. You're probably right, I said meekly. Will you tell Michael, or should I? Let me talk to him, she said quickly. He might need some time to adjust to the idea. You know how sentimental he can be. Sentimental. About his own mother becoming homeless. How generous. I nodded and closed my laptop. Went to pour myself coffee, my hands deliberately shaking. Brittany watched me with barely concealed satisfaction. I turned away so she wouldn't see my smile. That afternoon, while they were both at work, I made 2 important calls. The first was to the county clerk's office. I need a certified copy of my property deed. I told the clerk, a pleasant woman named Sandra. Of course, I'll need your property address and ID. I provided both. How long will it take? You can pick it up Monday. Beautiful property on Maple Street, if I'm remembering right. You've owned it quite a while, haven't you? 37 years, I confirmed, watching as she pulled up the records on her computer. And I intend to keep it. The second call was harder. Sarah Mitchell had been a junior attorney when I was a senior paralegal at Morrison & Associates 20 years ago. I'd mentored her, helped her prepare for the bar exam, taught her everything I knew about property law and family law. Now she had her own practice, and she owed me favors. Jennifer. She sounded delighted to hear from me. It's been too long. How are you? I need legal advice, I said, and I need it to be confidential. Her tone changed immediately. Professional, concerned. What's going on? I told her everything. The comments, the manipulation, the overheard conversation, the apartment listing I'd shown Brittany that morning. When I finished, there was a long silence. Let me make sure I understand, Sarah said slowly. They're trying to force you out of your own home. Do they even know you own it? Michael knows I inherited it when Tom died, but I don't think he understands what that means legally. And Brittany, I paused. I don't think she's bothered to ask. Sarah made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. Jennifer, this is straightforward from a legal standpoint. You're the sole owner. You can evict them at any time. The question is, how do you want to handle this? I thought about Michael nodding while Brittany told me to leave. Thought about 37 years of memories of survival of love. I want them to understand exactly what they've done, I said quietly. I want them to feel the full weight of their actions, and I want it to be completely legal and unassailable. Then we need to be strategic, Sarah said. I could hear her smile. Document everything. Colorado is a one-party consent state, so you can record conversations without their knowledge. Get proof of what they're planning. Then we'll execute a formal eviction. 30 days notice, completely by the book. What about, I hesitated. What if they claim I'm not competent? What if they try to fight it? That's why we document everything. Show that you're making clear, rational decisions. Show that they're the ones behaving improperly, not you. Jennifer, you're a paralegal. You know this stuff. Trust your instincts. I did know this stuff. I'd worked property cases for decades. Helped clients navigate evictions, inheritance disputes, family conflicts. I just never imagined I'd need that knowledge for my own family. Monday morning, I drove to an electronics store and purchased a small digital recorder, the kind that looked like a pen, easy to keep in my pocket. Then I went to the county clerk's office and picked up my certified property deed. Sandra processed the paperwork with a smile. Everything looks good, Mrs. Sullivan. You're all set. I held that document crisp, official, irrefutable like a shield. My house, my name, my property. That afternoon, I stopped by my bank and requested copies of all my mortgage statements. Proof that the house had been paid off for 15 years. Every property tax payment, every utility bill, all in my name alone. Michael had never contributed a cent to this house's upkeep. He'd lived here rent-free for 3 years now, and this was his gratitude. I started recording conversations that same day. The pen recorder in my shirt pocket picked up everything. Brittany on the phone with her mother. "It's finally happening, Mom. She's looking at apartments. We'll have the house soon." Brittany talking to her friend Amanda. "Once the old lady moves out, we can finally make this place livable. I'm thinking of knocking down the wall between the kitchen and dining room." Michael silent during these conversations, never disagreeing, never defending me. His silence was its own form of betrayal. Wednesday evening, Brittany invited friends over. Again, no warning. I came home from work to find 6 people in my living room, wine bottles on my coffee table, someone's shoes on my couch. I kept the recorder running and went upstairs. Through my bedroom floor, I could hear them clearly. "You're so lucky to have this house," one friend said. I recognized Amanda's voice. "The location is incredible. How'd you score it?" Brittany laughed. "Well, it's Michael's mom's place technically, but she's moving out soon. Finally. She's been cramping our style for way too long." "Wait, isn't this her house, though?" A male voice, uncertain. "Technically, yeah, but she's old, you know. She doesn't need all this space. We convinced her it's time to downsize. Michael's an only child, so eventually it'll be ours anyway. We're just accelerating the timeline." My hands clenched around the recorder, the casual cruelty of it, the entitlement, the way she spoke about me as if I were already dead. "That's kind of genius," Amanda said. "My in-laws have a beach house in Florida I've been dying to get my hands on. Maybe I should try that approach." They laughed. All of them laughed. I sat on my bed listening to strangers plot in my living room and felt something inside me harden into steel. The confrontation came on a Friday evening, exactly 2 weeks after I'd overheard their conversation. I'd spent those 2 weeks preparing, documenting, recording, building an unassailable case. But I'd also spent those 2 weeks hoping somehow that I was wrong, that Michael would suddenly see what was happening and defend me, that Brittany would have a moment of conscience. Neither happened. Instead, the pressure increased. "Jennifer, I found a great condo listing," Brittany would say. "1 bedroom perfect for you. Want me to set up a viewing?" "Mom, have you thought about what you'll do with all your furniture?" Michael asked one evening. "Most studio apartments won't fit much." They were so confident, so sure I was going along with their plan. On Friday, I decided to make one last gesture, one final attempt to connect to see if any part of my son was still in there. I spent the afternoon making lasagna, Michael's favorite since childhood. The recipe Tom's mother had taught me, with 3 kinds of cheese and that special seasoning blend I'd never shared with anyone else. I made garlic bread from scratch, mixed a salad with the vegetables from my own garden, set the table with the good plates. Maybe a nice dinner could bring us together. Maybe it could dissolve the tension, remind us that we were family. How naive I was. At 6 o'clock, Brittany walked into the kitchen. Michael trailed behind her. She didn't even glance at the food I'd spent hours preparing. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at me with those cold blue eyes I'd mistaken for friendly just months ago. "Jennifer, we need to talk." I wiped my hands on my apron, trying to steady my breathing. The recorder in my pocket was already running. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" "This living arrangement isn't working out." Her voice was flat, businesslike. "Michael and I need our space. We're planning to start a family, and we can't do that with you hovering around all the time." Hovering. In my own home. The words hit like a physical blow. I didn't realize I was hovering," I said carefully, keeping my voice level. "Perhaps we could discuss—" "No," she cut me off sharp as a knife. "There's no perhaps. We've made our decision. It's time for you to find your own place. There are plenty of rooms for rent in town. You should start looking." I turned to Michael desperately, hoping, praying he'd defend me. Tell her she was being unreasonable. But my son, my boy, the child I'd raised alone, just stood there and nodded. Actually nodded in agreement. Something inside me broke and hardened simultaneously. I smiled. Not a fake smile, not a sad smile, a calm, knowing smile that seemed to confuse them both. I see, I said softly. The recorder captured every word. Of course, I'll start looking. Brittany blinked, surprised by my easy compliance. Oh, good. That's good. I've already been browsing listings, actually. There's a studio downtown that seems nice. Small but adequate. Perfect. Brittany's relief was palpable. How soon can you move? The apartment should be available in 30 days. I'll need time to pack, obviously. 37 years of belongings take a while to sort through. 30 days works, Michael said, speaking for the first time. His voice was soft, guilty, but not guilty enough to stop this. Well then, I untied my apron, folding it carefully. I suppose I should get started. Please help yourselves to dinner. I'm not very hungry anymore. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving the lasagna cooling on the counter, leaving them standing there with their victory, leaving them completely unaware that this house, this beautiful house they were already planning to renovate, belonged entirely to me. That night I sat in my bedroom and pulled out the deed again, stared at my name, Jennifer Ann Sullivan, sole owner, and I made my final decision. No more playing along, no more pretending to be the confused old woman they thought I was. It was time to show them exactly who they were dealing with. Tomorrow I would call Sarah and begin the eviction process. But tonight I allowed myself to grieve. Not for the house, I was keeping the house. I grieved for my son, for the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers, for the teenager who'd hugged me tight at Tom's funeral and promised to take care of me. When had he become this stranger who couldn't meet my eyes, who could stand silent while his wife evicted his own mother? I pressed my hand against the wall against the blue flowers Tom and I had chosen together. I'm not giving up without a fight, I whispered to his memory. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The wallpaper seemed to whisper back, show them. And I would. In part 1, I told you how my son Michael and his wife Brittany tried to force me out of my own home. They had no idea I owned the house outright. After overhearing their plans to manipulate me into leaving, I decided to fight back. But I needed to be smart about it, strategic, legal. Now let me tell you what happened next. Saturday morning arrived with that peculiar Colorado sunshine that makes everything look deceptively peaceful. I woke at 5:30 like always. My body doesn't sleep in anymore, hasn't for years. Tom used to joke that I ran on some internal alarm clock set to early bird special. But there would be no going back to sleep today. My mind was already racing. I made coffee in the kitchen, my kitchen I reminded myself, and sat at the table with a yellow legal pad. Old habits from my paralegal days. When faced with a complex case, write it all down. Map it out. Find the weak points and the strong points. At the top of the page I wrote, Objectives 1. Protect my property rights. 2. Ensure legal compliance. 3. Document all evidence. 4. Minimize emotional damage to Michael if possible. 5. Maintain my dignity throughout, then risks. 1. Michael choosing Brittany permanently. 2. Violent reaction when truth revealed. 3. Claims of diminished capacity. 4. Social media campaign against me. 5. Losing my son forever. My hand trembled slightly on that last one. I set down the pen and wrapped both hands around my coffee mug, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. Could I really do this? Could I evict my own son? But then I remembered Brittany's voice. Once we get her to sign it over. Michael's nod of agreement. The casual cruelty of planning to take my home while I stood in the next room. Yes, I could do this. I had to. I picked up the pen again. Action items 1. Meet with Sarah Mitchell. Get legal strategy. 2. Purchase recording device done. 3. Obtain certified property deed done. 4. Gather financial documents proving sole ownership. 5. Document all conversations and threats. 6. Prepare formal eviction notice. 7. Arrange witnesses for eviction delivery. 8. Plan exit strategy if situation becomes dangerous. I was halfway through writing item 9 when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, I flipped the legal pad over and pulled my laptop in front of me, opening it to the apartment listings I'd bookmarked yesterday. Brittany appeared in the doorway, wrapped in the silk robe I'd given her for Christmas. It had cost me $200 money I'd saved from skipping lunches for a month. She'd barely thanked me. "You're up early?" she said, pouring herself coffee. "Couldn't sleep." I gestured at the laptop. "I've been looking at more apartments. I found a few that allow small pets. I was thinking of getting a cat, for company. It was a lie I was allergic to cats, but it sounded like something a lonely old woman would say. Brittany's face softened into something that might have looked like sympathy to someone who didn't know better. That's sweet, Jennifer. A cat would be good for you. She sat down across from me, cradling her mug. For a moment, we sat in silence. The morning light caught the highlights in her blonde hair. She was beautiful, I had to admit. I could see why Michael had fallen for her. But beauty without kindness is just a pretty mask over ugliness. I wanted to thank you, Brittany said suddenly. I looked up, surprised. For what? For being so understanding about all this, about the move. She reached across the table and patted my hand. Her skin was soft, moisturized. Mine was spotted with age and rough from years of work. I know change is hard, especially at your age, but you're handling it so gracefully. At my age, as if 63 was ancient. Well, I said, keeping my voice gentle, you and Michael have your whole lives ahead of you. It's only fair that you should have space to build your future. Exactly. Her face lit up. That's exactly it. Michael's father would have wanted this too. Don't you think he'd want Michael to have a good home for his family? The casual invocation of Tom's memory made my stomach clench. How dare she use my dead husband to justify stealing my house? But I smiled. Tom always wanted the best for Michael. See, you understand. She squeezed my hand. You're going to love having your own space, Jennifer. No responsibilities. You can just relax and enjoy your golden years. Golden years. Like I was being put out to pasture. I nodded and looked back at my laptop, afraid my face would betray the fury building inside me. Brittany finished her coffee and stood. I'm going to take a shower. Michael and I are meeting with a contractor later, just to get some preliminary estimates for after you move out. That's nice, I said mildly. After she left, I sat very still, breathing deeply, counting to 100 like my therapist had taught me years ago when dealing with difficult opposing counsel. Then I flipped over the legal pad and added to my list 9. Do not let them see you break. That afternoon while they were at their contractor meeting, I drove to my bank. First National had been my bank for 35 years. The branch manager, Patricia Kowalski, had handled my accounts since she was a teller fresh out of college. Jennifer, she smiled warmly when I approached her desk. What brings you in on a Saturday? I need copies of some financial documents, Pat. My mortgage statements, property tax payments, utility bills, anything that shows the house on Maple Street belongs solely to me. Patricia's smile faded into concern. Is everything okay? I considered lying, but Patricia had seen me through Tom's death, through the lean years, through everything. She deserved honesty. My son and his wife are trying to force me out of my home. They don't realize I own it outright. I need documentation to protect myself legally. Her eyes widened. Jennifer, are you serious? Very serious. What can I do to help? We spent the next hour pulling records. 15 years of mortgage payments before the house was paid off. 15 more years of taxes, insurance, utilities, all in my name. Michael's name appeared nowhere. This is everything, Patricia said, handing me a thick folder. Jennifer, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Don't be sorry yet, I said. Be sorry for them when they realize what they've done. Patricia actually smiled at that. Good for you. Don't let them push you around. As I was leaving, she called after me. Jennifer, if you need a witness or anything, you call me. I'll testify to these records in a heartbeat. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Pat. It was good to know I wasn't completely alone. Sunday morning, I attended church like I had every week for 40 years. Our Lady of Guadalupe had been my sanctuary after Tom died. The familiar rituals, the community, the quiet peace of the sanctuary, it had all helped me survive those dark months. Father Miguel noticed me lighting an extra candle. Praying for something specific, Jennifer, he asked gently. Strength, I said, and wisdom, and maybe forgiveness, though I'm not quite ready for that last one yet. He sat beside me in the pew. Father Miguel was 68 with kind eyes and hands weathered from his years as a carpenter before joining the priesthood. Want to talk about it? I told him. Not everything, but enough. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. The Bible says to honor your father and mother, he said finally. It doesn't say mothers should allow themselves to be dishonored. So you don't think I'm being cruel evicting my own son? I think you're being just. Justice and cruelty aren't the same thing, Jennifer. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, even painful ones. His words settled something in my chest that had been tight since Friday night. Thank you, Father. And Jennifer, when this is over, when you need to work on forgiveness for them and for yourself, come talk to me. But right now, you protect yourself. You protect what's yours. Monday morning, I took a personal day from work. I'd accumulated hundreds of hours of paid time off over the years. I rarely took vacations. But today, I needed to focus. At 9 o'clock sharp, I was in Sarah Mitchell's office. Her practice was in a restored Victorian house in downtown Denver, all hardwood floors and tall windows. Success looked good on her. I felt proud remembering the nervous young attorney she'd been 20 years ago. Jennifer, she stood and hugged me. I've been thinking about your situation all weekend. Good thoughts, I hope. Strategic thoughts. She gestured to a chair. I've drafted a preliminary eviction notice. Colorado law requires 30 days for month-to-month tenancies. Since they're not on a lease and not paying rent, they're essentially tenants at will. She handed me a document. I scanned it, my paralegal training kicking in automatically. This looks solid, I said. But what about their claim that I might not be competent? That's why we need documentation. I want you to record every conversation for the next week. Show that you're making clear, rational decisions. Show that they're the ones behaving inappropriately. I've already started recording. I pulled out the pen recorder and played back some of Brittany's comments about getting me to sign over the house. Sarah's jaw tightened. That's elder financial abuse. Jennifer, you could press charges if you wanted to. I don't want to destroy them, I said quietly. I just want to keep my home. And maybe help Michael see what he's become. Sarah's expression softened. You're a better person than I'd be, but we'll keep that option in reserve. Sometimes the threat of charges is enough to make people back down. We spent the next 2 hours going over strategy. Every detail had to be perfect. No room for them to claim impropriety or emotional distress. One thing concerns me, Sarah said as I was leaving. You mentioned Brittany's friends were at your house last Wednesday. You should document property damage if any. Take photos. If they're having parties, they might be damaging your home. I hadn't thought of that. I'll check today, I promised. That afternoon, I walked through my house with my phone camera documenting everything. Water rings on my oak coffee table, the one Tom and I had refinished together one summer. A cigarette burn on the arm of the couch. Neither Michael nor Brittany smoked, but apparently their friends did. Scratches on my hardwood floors in the living room where Brittany had moved furniture without felt pads. A crack in the vintage mirror in the hallway. Had that been there before, each photo felt like evidence of disrespect. Of people who didn't value what they'd been given. I was uploading the photos to a cloud backup when my phone rang. Hi, Mom. Michael's voice made my chest ache. Hi, honey. How are you? Good. Listen, Brittany and I were talking. We know this move is hard for you. We wanted to take you out to dinner this week. Kind of a thank you for being so understanding. A thank you for letting them steal my house. That's sweet of you, I said, keeping my voice warm. When were you thinking Wednesday, that new Italian place downtown? Wednesday works for me. After we hung up, I sat very still. They were going to wine and dine me, make me feel appreciated, all while planning to take everything I had. The manipulation was breathtaking. The next few days fell into a strange rhythm. I played my part perfectly, the grateful, compliant old woman preparing to move out of her own home. I browsed apartment listings at the kitchen table. I asked Brittany's advice on what furniture would fit in a studio. I even started going through closets as if actually preparing to pack. All the while, the recorder captured everything. Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work early and overheard Brittany on the phone with someone named Madison. I'm telling you, Maddie, it's almost too easy. She's just rolling over and accepting it. I thought there'd be more pushback, but she's actually thanking us for pushing her out. Laughter from the other end. I know, right? Michael was worried she'd make a scene, but she's being totally docile. We'll have full run of the house by October. I've already planned the whole renovation. Knocking down walls, updating the kitchen, it's going to be gorgeous. More conversation I couldn't quite hear. His dad? Oh, she brings him up sometimes, but ancient history, you know. He died like 1,000,000 years ago. She needs to move on. 15 years. Tom had been gone 15 years. Not ancient history to me. Anyway, gotta run. Contractors coming at 3 to measure for the new master suite. Master suite. In my bedroom. where Tom and I had slept for 22 years. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom, running the water so they wouldn't hear me cry. Wednesday evening arrived, and with it the promised dinner. Michael picked me up at 6. Brittany was already in the car, looking stunning in a navy dress I'd never seen before. "You look lovely, dear," I said, sliding into the back seat. "Thanks, it's new. Early birthday present from Michael." I didn't mention that her birthday was 6 months away, or that the dress probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The restaurant was beautiful. White tablecloths, soft lighting, the kind of place Tom used to take me for anniversaries. They ordered expensive wine. I stuck with water. I needed my wits about me. "Mom, we want you to know how much we appreciate you," Michael said, raising his glass. "This can't be easy making such a big change, but we think it's going to be great for you." "To new beginnings," Brittany added. We clinked glasses. I smiled and sipped my water, the recorder in my purse capturing every word. Over appetizers, they talked about their plans for the house. "We're thinking of converting your sewing room into a nursery," Brittany said. "Soft yellow, gender neutral. What do you think my sewing room, where I'd made Michael's Halloween costumes every year, where I'd altered my wedding dress and then shortened it for my 25th anniversary dinner with Tom?" "That sounds lovely," I said. "And the rose garden," Michael added. "We might put in a deck there instead. More practical for entertaining." Tom's roses, the ones he'd planted the year before he died, telling me they'd bloom long after he was gone. They would, but not for Michael. "Whatever you think is best," I murmured. Over the main course, Brittany leaned forward conspiratorially. "Jennifer, I have to ask, what made you decide to make the move, to finally agree that it was time?" I looked at her carefully. She was fishing, wanting to hear that her manipulation had worked. "You were right," I said softly. "The house is too big for one person, and you and Michael deserve to have your own space to build your life." "But you seemed so attached to it," she pressed. "All those memories of Michael's dad and everything." "Tom would have wanted me to do what's best for Michael," I said. It was true, actually. Tom had always put Michael first, but he wouldn't have wanted this. Brittany sat back, satisfied. "That's beautiful, Jennifer. Really beautiful. Tom sounds like he was a wonderful man." "He was," I agreed. "He taught me a lot about standing up for what's right, about not letting people take advantage of your kindness." Something flickered in Brittany's eyes, but she recovered quickly. "Of course. Well, we promised to take good care of the house. It'll still be in the family." The family. Their family. Not mine. Dessert arrived, tiramisu for them, nothing for me. I'd lost my appetite hours ago. "There's one thing we wanted to discuss," Michael said, looking uncomfortable. "The furniture. Obviously, you can't take everything to a studio apartment. What were you planning to do with it?" "Ah, here it was. They wanted my furniture too." "I haven't decided yet," I said carefully. "Some pieces have sentimental value. The dining table was my mother's. The couch was Tom's favorite." "Right, but..." Brittany glanced at Michael. "Those are pretty outdated. We were hoping to redecorate with a more modern aesthetic. Maybe you could donate most of it, or we could arrange an estate sale." Estate sale, like I was already dead. "Let me think about it," I said. They exchanged a look that clearly said we'll push harder later. The bill came. $243 for dinner. Michael paid without blinking. The same man who'd claimed he couldn't contribute to groceries because they were saving for a house. "Thank you for a lovely evening," I said as we got back in the car. "I really appreciate it." "Of course, Mom. We love you." The words felt hollow, or maybe I just couldn't hear them anymore over the sound of my heart breaking. Thursday morning, I woke to find an email from Michael. Subject: moving timeline. "Mom, just wanted to touch base about the logistics of your move. Brittany and I are happy to help you pack and move. We've also been researching senior moving services if you'd prefer professional help. Also, we wanted to give you a heads up. We've put down a deposit with a contractor to start work on November 1st. So ideally, if you could be fully moved out by October 30th, that would be perfect. We know the apartment isn't available until October 15th, but maybe you could stay with Aunt Pat in Phoenix for a couple weeks. Let us know what you need from us. Love, Michael." I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold. They'd already hired a contractor. Already planned to start demolition the day after I moved out. They were so confident. So certain I'd comply. I forwarded the email to Sarah with a single line. "More evidence." Her response came within minutes. "Perfect. Keep collecting. We serve papers Monday." Friday evening, Brittany invited her mother over for dinner. Eleanor Hayes was a sharp-eyed woman in her late 50s who'd never particularly liked me. The feeling was mutual. "Jennifer," she greeted me with air kisses. "I hear you're making a big move. How exciting." "Yes, I'm looking forward to it," I lied. Over dinner, which Brittany cooked in my kitchen using my groceries, Eleanor held court about the wisdom of downsizing in your golden years. "My friend Marcia moved into a wonderful senior community in Boulder," she said. "They have bingo every Thursday and bus trips to the casino. You should look into it, Jennifer." Bingo and casinos. Because that's all old people want, apparently. "I'll keep that in mind," I said pleasantly. "And really, this house is far too much for one person to maintain," Eleanor continued. "The yard alone must be exhausting. I'd mowed that yard every week for 15 years. Weeded the flower beds, pruned the roses. It wasn't exhausting. It was meditative." "It can be challenging," I agreed. "Well, you won't have to worry about that anymore. And Brittany and Michael will take such good care of this place. Won't you, honey?" "Absolutely, Mom. We already have so many ideas." They spent the next hour discussing those ideas, knocking down walls, updating fixtures, replacing outdated elements. Every word felt like a knife. But I smiled and nodded and cleared the dishes when dinner was over. In the kitchen, Eleanor cornered me. "I have to say, Jennifer, I'm impressed. When Brittany first told me about this arrangement, I thought you'd make a fuss, but you're being very mature about it." "Why would I make a fuss?" I asked, loading the dishwasher. "Well, some women your age can be very territorial, very resistant to change, but you're seeing the bigger picture. That's admirable. Women my age, as if 63 was decrepit." "I just want what's best for Michael," I said. It was even true in a way. "Good, good." She patted my arm. "You know, Brittany was worried you might be one of those difficult mother-in-laws. I'm glad she was wrong." After Eleanor left, I sat in my bedroom and added her comments to my documentation file. The evidence was mounting, not just of manipulation, but of a systematic campaign to make me feel old, useless, and disposable. But I wasn't any of those things, and Monday they were going to find out exactly what I was. Sunday afternoon, I was in the garden when I heard shouting from inside the house. Michael's voice raised in a way I hadn't heard since he was a teenager, then Brittany sharp and angry. I stood up slowly, brushing dirt from my knees. The roses needed deadheading, but that could wait. Inside, I found them in the kitchen. Michael was pacing his phone clutched in his hand. Brittany stood with her arms crossed, face flushed. "What's wrong?" I asked. They both jumped, not having heard me come in. "Nothing, Mom," Michael said quickly. Too quickly. But Brittany was staring at him with barely concealed fury. "Tell her," she said. "Brittany, tell her." Michael ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he'd had since childhood when he was stressed. "I was just on the phone with our homeowner's insurance," he said. "They needed to update our policy and they asked for—" He trailed off. "Asked for what?" I prompted, though my pulse was already racing. "The property owner's information," he finished quietly. "Mom, the house is still in your name, just your name." There it was, the moment of truth arriving earlier than I'd planned. "Yes, Michael," I said calmly, moving to the sink to wash my hands. "It is." Silence fell like a stone. "But I thought," he started again. "When Dad died, didn't he leave it to both of us?" I dried my hands slowly, deliberately, turned to face them both. "Your father left everything to me, Michael, as spouses typically do. I've maintained, paid for, and cared for this house alone for 15 years. Brittany's face had gone pale, then red. "You never told us." "You never asked," I replied evenly. "You seem to have made a lot of assumptions." "Assumptions?" Her voice rose. "You let us think, you let us plan. Michael said the house would be his someday." I looked at my son. "Did I say that, Michael, ever, or did you assume?" He opened his mouth, closed it. I thought, you thought," I agreed. "But I never promised. This house is mine, Michael. Solely mine." "Does this matter right now?" Michael asked, looking between us desperately. "Mom's moving out anyway, so eventually, Brittany spun on him. "Eventually, Michael, we hired a contractor. We put down a $5,000 deposit. We've been planning renovations for a house we don't even own. $5,000. They'd spent $5,000 on plans for my house." "You should have checked ownership before spending money," I said quietly. Brittany's eyes narrowed. This is about control, isn't it? You're playing some kind of game. I'm not playing anything, Brittany. I'm living in my own home. But you agreed to move. Her voice was shrill now. You said you were looking at apartments. I said I was looking. I never said I was going. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by rage. You've been lying to us. No, I corrected. I've been listening to you, documenting your plans to manipulate me out of my own home. There's a difference. Michael's face had gone gray. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying that I heard you 2 weeks ago planning to convince me to sign over the house. I heard you discussing how to manipulate me, and I decided to see how far you'd go. You were spying on us. Brittany's voice dripped with outrage. In my own home, no, Brittany. I was existing in my space while you plotted to take it. She looked at Michael. Did you know about this? No, Mom, I swear I didn't. He turned to me. Why didn't you just tell us? Why this whole charade? Because I needed to know Michael. I needed to know if you'd really stand there and watch your wife throw your mother out. I needed to know if you'd become the kind of man who nods along while someone he claims to love is being manipulated. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't, Michael started. That's exactly what happened, I said. Friday night when Brittany told me to find a room to rent, you nodded. You agreed. You said maybe it would be better for everyone. Do you remember? His silence was answer enough. Brittany's shock was transforming into cold calculation. I could see it in her eyes, the same look she got when working out a problem. Fine, she said. Fine, the house is yours, we get it. But we've been living here for 3 years, rent-free, helping you, keeping you company. That has to count for something. Helping me? I almost laughed. Brittany, you reorganized my kitchen without asking. You redecorated my living room. You invited strangers into my home without notice. You never paid for groceries or utilities. How exactly was that helping me? We were making it feel like home. It was already my home. You were making it feel like yours. Michael stepped between us. Okay, everyone, let's calm down. We can work this out. Work out what? Brittany demanded. Your mother just admitted she's been lying to us for weeks. I admitted I was observing you, seeing if you do the right thing. You didn't. What did you expect? You should have just told us the house was yours. Why? I asked. So you could adjust your manipulation tactics, come up with a different strategy. That's not... She stopped, seemed to regroup. Michael, say something. Michael looked at me with something like desperation. Mom, please, can we just talk about this rationally? All 3 of us sitting down discussing this like adults. I'm happy to discuss it, Michael, but first I want to hear you say it. Do you think I should give up my home? Do you think I'm too old, too useless, too much of a burden to live in the house I've owned for 37 years? I never said that. You nodded when Brittany said it. You agreed when she told me to leave. What's the difference? Tears filled his eyes. I was trying to keep the peace. Brittany thought it would be better for you. Better for me. My voice rose despite my best efforts. Being forced out of my home is better for me. Having a studio apartment instead of the house your father and I built a life in is better for me. She didn't mean... She meant exactly that. And you let her. Brittany grabbed Michael's arm. I need to talk to you. Alone. Now. They left the kitchen. I heard their footsteps pound up the stairs. The bedroom door slam. I stood at the sink, hands gripping the counter, and listened to them argue. Their voices carried through the old house's thin floors. Your mother has been playing us. No, Brit. I think we were playing her and she caught on. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm trying to figure out what the hell just happened. What happened is your mother is a manipulative... Don't finish that sentence. Silence. Then Brittany's voice lower, but still audible. We need to figure out what to do. We can't just stay here now. Not after this. Where would we go? I don't know, but I'm not living under her roof anymore. Not when she's been lying to us this whole time. She wasn't lying. She was... God, Britt, she was watching us, testing us, and we failed. More silence. Then Michael's voice broken. I nodded when you told my mom to leave her own house. What kind of person does that? Finally a crack in his willingness to follow Brittany blindly. They didn't come back downstairs that evening. I made myself dinner, scrambled eggs and toast, all I could stomach. Ate alone at the oak table. Around 9, Michael texted, "We need some time to process this." "Can we talk tomorrow?" I replied. Of course, but I knew what tomorrow would bring. Another attempt at manipulation. Another strategy to get what they wanted. I was tired of it. Tired of playing defense in my own home. Monday morning I was calling Sarah. It was time to go on offense. I didn't sleep well that night. Every sound made me jump. Every creak of the old house settling. I kept expecting angry footsteps, confrontations, demands. But the house stayed quiet. Around 3 a.m., I got up and went downstairs, made chamomile tea and sat in the living room with just the lamp Tom had bought at an estate sale 30 years ago. The house at night had always been my favorite time. The silence, the stillness. Just me and the memories. I thought about the life Tom and I had built here. The fights and the makeups. The joy of bringing baby Michael home from the hospital. The grief of burying Tom from this very living room. Every inch of this house was soaked in love and loss and survival, and I'd be damned if I'd let anyone take it from me. Morning came with a knock on my bedroom door. "Mom, can we talk, all three of us?" Michael's voice. Careful, placating. I checked the time, 7:15. They'd clearly been up for a while planning. "Give me 15 minutes, I called back. I dressed carefully. Not the old cardigan I'd been wearing lately to play the part of feeble old woman. Instead, a crisp white blouse and navy slacks. The outfit I used to wear to court when I was working. Armor. When I came downstairs, they were waiting in the dining room. The table was set for 3. Coffee brewing. Bagels on a plate. It was designed to look domestic. Peaceful. Let's all be reasonable adults. But I could see the calculation in Brittany's eyes. "Mom, sit, please." Michael pulled out a chair for me. I sat, saying nothing, waiting. Brittany poured coffee for all of us, pushed the cream toward me like we were at a business meeting. "Jennifer," she began, her voice carefully modulated. "I want to apologize for yesterday. Things got heated. We all said things we didn't mean." I sipped my coffee, still waited. Michael leaned forward. "Mom, we've been talking. All night, really. And we understand now that we made some mistakes." "Mistakes," I repeated. "We should have communicated better," Brittany said. "Should have asked instead of assumed. That's on us." Smooth. Practiced. They definitely rehearsed this. "But here's the thing," Brittany continued. "We can't change the past. We can only move forward, and we think there's a way to do that that benefits everyone." Here it came. "We want to buy the house from you," Michael said. I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Buy it?" "Yes. We'd offer you a fair price. Above market value, actually." He slid a piece of paper across the table. "We're thinking $850,000. I looked at the number. They'd done their research. The house was worth about $900,000 in the current market. But after realtor fees and taxes, I'd net about $850,000 if I sold it traditionally. They were offering me what looked like a good deal, except... "How would you finance that?" I asked. They exchanged a glance. "We've spoken to Brittany's parents," Michael said. "They're willing to help with the down payment, and with both our incomes, we can qualify for the mortgage." Brittany's parents. Eleanor Hayes, who'd spent Friday night discussing how I was too old for this house. "So you'd take out a mortgage to buy my house," I said slowly, "and I'd use that money to buy a condo somewhere. Is that the plan?" "Exactly," Brittany smiled. "You'd have money left over, too, for travel hobbies, whatever you want. It's a fresh start, Jennifer, for all of us. And the contractor you hired, the $5,000 deposit." Michael winced. "We'd continue with those plans. It's already paid for, and honestly, Mom, the house does need updating." "I see." I let the silence stretch, watched them shift uncomfortably. "What do you think?" Brittany finally asked. "I think," I said carefully, "that you've put a lot of thought into this." "We have," Michael agreed eagerly. "Mom, this way everyone wins. You get a comfortable retirement fund. We get a home for our future family. No hard feelings." No hard feelings. After they'd spent weeks manipulating me, planning to force me out, treating me like a burden. "That's a very generous offer," I said. Relief flooded their faces. "However," I continued, "the answer is no." The relief evaporated. "Mom, Michael started. This is my home, Michael. I don't want to sell it. I don't want a condo. I don't want a fresh start. I want to stay in the house where I raised you, where I buried your father, where I've built my life. But you said you were looking at apartments. Brittany's voice rose. I said I was looking. I never said I would move. You let us think. I let you show me exactly who you are, I interrupted. And you did. You showed me that you're willing to lie, to manipulate, to treat me like an inconvenience. And now you're trying to make it right by buying me off. That's not... Michael looked stricken. Mom, that's not what this is. Then what is it? He opened his mouth, closed it, had no answer. Brittany stood abruptly. Fine, fine. Keep your precious house. But we're not staying here. Not after this. That's your choice to make, I said calmly. And when you're old and sick and need help, don't come crying to us, she spat. When you die alone in this house, remember you chose it over your family. The words were meant to wound, and they did. But I'd learned long ago that truth cuts deeper than threats. Brittany, I said quietly, I'd rather die alone with my dignity intact than live with people who see me as an obstacle to overcome. She stared at me, breathing hard. Michael still sat at the table, his head in his hands. We're leaving, Brittany announced. Today. Michael, go pack. Britt, now Michael. He looked at me one more time. I saw the boy I'd raised in his eyes, the confused, conflicted child who didn't know which way to turn. It's okay, I told him gently. Do what you need to do. He left the room. Brittany followed, but she stopped in the doorway. You're going to regret this, she said. The only thing I regret, I replied, is not standing up for myself sooner. They packed in a fury. I could hear them upstairs slamming drawers, arguing in fierce whispers. I sat in the living room and called Sarah. They're moving out, I told her, on their own. Good, Sarah said. That's actually better than eviction. No legal complications. Jennifer, this is the best outcome. Then why does it hurt so much? Because he's your son, and you love him. But Jennifer, love doesn't mean letting yourself be abused. Father Miguel had said almost the same thing. Around noon, they started carrying boxes to their car. I didn't help, didn't watch. Just stayed in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Michael came in one last time. Mom, He stopped, started again. I'm sorry for all of it. I was weak. I let Brittany. I should have defended you. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Is there any way to fix this? I looked at my son, really looked at him. Not today, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But you need to figure out who you are, Michael. Who you want to be, not who Brittany tells you to be. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I love you, Mom. I love you too. That's why I'm not letting you do this. He left without another word. An hour later, I heard the car start. Heard them drive away. And then my house was silent again. I walked through it slowly, room by room. The guest room where they'd slept now empty except for the bed frame. They'd taken the mattress we'd bought together. The bathroom toiletries gone, leaving behind only the soap I kept for guests. The living room, the throw pillows Brittany had bought now missing. In the kitchen, I found a note. We took the coffee maker since we bought it. Also the dishes we purchased. Hope that's okay. The coffee maker Tom had given me for our 10th anniversary was still there. Brittany had taken the Keurig she'd bought herself 6 months ago and never let me use anyway. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I sat at the oak table and let myself cry. Not for them, for me. For the family I'd imagined and the reality I'd gotten. For the son who'd chosen his wife's greed over his mother's home. For the 3 years I'd wasted trying to make them happy. But also, and this surprised me, I cried with relief. My house was mine again. Empty, yes. Quiet, yes. Monday morning I called Sarah again. They're gone, I said. Moved out yesterday. Completely gone. As far as I can tell, their car is gone, most of their stuff is gone. I think they're staying with Brittany's parents. Then you don't need the eviction notice, Sarah said. Crisis averted, legally speaking. I suppose so. How are you feeling? I looked around my quiet kitchen, the morning sun coming through the window Tom had installed, the countertop we'd chosen together, the floor I'd walked on for 37 years. Sad, I admitted, but also free. Give it time, Sarah advised. And Jennifer changed the locks, just in case. Smart advice. That afternoon I called a locksmith. By evening, every lock in the house had been changed. My house, my locks, my life. The rest of the week passed in a strange limbo. I went to work, came home, moved through my routines. But the house felt different. Lighter somehow. Like I could breathe fully for the first time in 3 years. I put Brittany's modern throw pillows in the donation pile. Rearranged my kitchen back the way I liked it. Moved the furniture in the living room to where Tom and I had originally placed it. Reclaimed my space, inch by inch. On Friday, my book club met at my house. Linda, Margaret, Susan, and Dorothy had been meeting monthly for 15 years. They'd seen me through Tom's death, through raising Michael alone, through everything. "Where's the happy couple?" Linda asked, looking around. "Gone," I said simply. "They moved out." 4 pairs of eyes widened. "What happened?" Susan asked. I told them. All of it. The manipulation, the overheard conversation, the confrontation. When I finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then Margaret said, "Good for you." "Really? I'd been afraid they'd think I was cruel." "Really," Dorothy confirmed. "Jennifer, we've been watching them treat you like a guest in your own home for 3 years. We just didn't know how to say anything." "You should have," I said. "Would you have listened?" Linda asked gently. She had a point. I'd been so desperate for family, for connection, that I'd accepted unacceptable treatment. "Well," I said, "I'm listening now." We spent the evening talking, laughing, drinking wine. They helped me decide which of Brittany's improvements to undo and which to keep. "The bookshelf in the living room is actually nice," Susan said. "Keep that." "But those awful geometric pillows have to go," Margaret added. By the time they left, I felt lighter than I had in years. 2 weeks later, Michael called. "Mom, can we talk?" My heart jumped. "Of course." "Not on the phone. Can I come over? When?" "Now I'm parked outside." I looked out the window. Sure enough, Michael's car was in the driveway. "Come in," I said. He looked terrible, thinner, tired, dark circles under his eyes. "Brittany and I are separated," he said without preamble. "She's staying with her parents. I got an apartment in Lakewood." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "Don't be." He sat at the kitchen table in the same chair he'd sat in as a boy doing homework. "Mom, I need to say something, and I need you to just listen. Can you do that?" I nodded. "I was wrong. About everything. I let Brittany convince me that you were the problem, that you were too attached to the past, too resistant to change. But really, I was just too weak to stand up to her." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "She started talking about getting you to move out maybe 6 months ago. At first I thought she was joking, but she kept pushing, kept saying you'd be happier somewhere smaller, and I wanted to believe her, because it was easier than admitting my wife was trying to steal my mom's house." "Michael, please, let me finish." He took a shaky breath. "When you caught us, when you revealed you'd known all along, I was furious. I thought you were being manipulative, playing games, but you weren't. You were giving me a chance to do the right thing, and I didn't." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, what I became. And I'm so sorry." I reached across the table and took his hand. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "Therapy," he said. "I started seeing someone, trying to figure out why I'm so easily manipulated. Why I couldn't stand up for my own mother." "That's good, Michael. That's really good." "And Brittany?" "I don't know. She's talking about divorce, about how I chose you over her. And honestly, Mom, I think she's right. I should have chosen you, from the beginning." We sat in silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Anything. Why didn't you just kick us out immediately? Why the whole observation thing?" I considered the question. "Because I needed to know," I said honestly. "I needed to know if you'd really go through with it, if there was any part of you that would stand up for me. And I needed you to see what you'd become." "That's harsh." "Yes," I agreed. "But sometimes love is harsh. Sometimes it means letting someone face the consequences of their choices." He nodded slowly. Is there any way to rebuild this us? Not today, I said gently. You hurt me, Michael. Deeply, but you're getting help. You're trying to change. That's a start. A start, he repeated. I'll take it. He left an hour later after coffee and awkward conversation about his new apartment, his therapy sessions, his job. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And real was something we hadn't had in a long time. That night I stood in my rose garden. Tom's roses were blooming, deep red the color of love and loss. I did it, I whispered to his memory. I kept the house. I stood up for myself. The evening breeze rustled the leaves. I imagined I could hear his voice. Proud of you, Jen. It's just me now, I said. Me and the house and the memories. Is that enough? The roses bloomed silently, beautifully, enduringly. And I realized, yes, it was enough. For now, it was enough. In part 2, I confronted Michael and Brittany about their plans to take my house. When they discovered I owned it outright, they tried to buy it from me, offering what seemed like a generous price, but was really just another manipulation. I refused. They moved out in anger, but Michael came back 2 weeks later, apologizing and admitting he'd been wrong. He was getting therapy and had separated from Brittany. Now let me tell you what happened in the 6 months that followed. 6 months can change everything. I learned that truth as winter melted into spring in Denver as the aspens turned green again and Tom's roses prepared to bloom for their 38th season. It was late April when I stood in my garden, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The air smelled like possibility, that particular scent of warming earth and new growth that makes you believe in fresh starts. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Coffee this Sunday. Our usual place, I smiled and replied, see you at 10. Our usual place. We'd developed a routine over these 6 months. Every other Sunday coffee at the little cafe downtown. Neutral territory where we could talk without the weight of the house's history pressing down on us. It had been slow going at first. Awkward silences. Careful conversations that skirted around the pain. Michael talked about his therapy sessions, his new apartment, his job. I talked about my garden, my book club, my volunteer work. We didn't talk about Brittany, until one day about 3 months in, he brought her up himself. She filed for divorce, he'd said, stirring his coffee without meeting my eyes. Her lawyer sent the papers last week. How do you feel about that? I'd asked, channeling his therapist. Relieved, he'd admitted. Sad, guilty, but mostly relieved. Does that make me terrible? It makes you human. Now, 3 months after that conversation, we were building something new. Not the relationship we'd had before that was broken beyond repair, but something different, more honest, more real. That afternoon, I had an appointment that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. I was going on a date. His name was Frank Morrison. He was 67, a retired high school English teacher, with kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. We'd met at the legal aid clinic where I volunteered. He was helping low-income students with college essay writing. Jennifer, he'd said when we were introduced. The paralegal everyone talks about. They say you can find loopholes in contracts that 3 lawyers missed. They exaggerate, I'd replied, but I was pleased. We'd started talking about books, then about teaching versus law, then about everything and nothing the way you do when you meet someone who genuinely listens. 3 weeks ago, he'd asked me to dinner. I'd said yes, surprising myself. Now, standing in front of my closet, I felt like a teenager. What does one wear to a first date at 63? I settled on a blue dress I'd bought on a whim last month, the first new dress I'd purchased in 3 years. It made me feel pretty. Not old, not invisible, just pretty. Frank picked me up at 6, holding a bouquet of daisies. My wife loved daisies, he said, then looked stricken. I'm sorry. Is it weird that I mentioned my wife on our first date? Your late wife, I asked gently. Yes. Sarah, she died 4 years ago. Cancer. Then no, I said, taking the flowers. It's not weird. My husband Tiep died 15 years ago. Heart attack. And he loved roses. We looked at each other, 2 people who'd loved and lost and somehow found the courage to try again. We're quite a pair, Frank said. Yes, I agreed. I think we are. Dinner was lovely. We talked about books and teaching and law. About Tom and Sarah and the strange adventure of being widowed and single again. Do you ever feel guilty? I asked over dessert. Like you're betraying them somehow. Every day, Frank admitted. But then I remember what Sarah told me right before she died. She said, "Frank Morrison, if you spend the rest of your life alone out of some misguided loyalty to me, I will haunt you." She made me promise I'd keep living. I smiled. Tom would have said something similar, probably with more swearing. Sarah was very fond of swearing too, actually, especially during chemo. We laughed and it felt good, natural, like maybe this could be something. He walked me to my door at 9:30. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "If you're interested." "I'm interested," I replied. He kissed my cheek, gentle and respectful. After he left, I sat in my living room, my reclaimed living room, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Sunday morning I met Michael at the cafe. He looked different. Better. He'd gained back some of the weight he'd lost, and the dark circles under his eyes had faded. Therapy was working. "Mom, I need to tell you something," he said after we'd ordered. My stomach clenched. "Okay." "I've been going through Brittany's things, stuff she left at the apartment when she moved out." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through, then showed me a photo, credit card statements, collections notices, past due bills. "She had $87,000 in credit card debt," Michael said quietly. "I had no idea. She'd been hiding it the entire time we were married." I looked at the numbers on the screen. Cash advances, luxury purchases, designer clothes and expensive dinners and shopping sprees. "Her parents cut her off financially 2 years ago," Michael continued. "She'd maxed out cards they'd co-signed on. They told her she had to learn to live within her means, so she married me." The pieces clicked into place. "She thought you had money," I said slowly. "Because of the house." "Because of you," he corrected. "She thought I'd inherit the house, that we could sell it, pay off her debts, live comfortably. When that didn't happen fast enough, she decided to accelerate the timeline." I sat back absorbing this. "Did you know any of this before?" "No, she was careful. Had a separate bank account for the debt payments. I thought we were saving money, but she was just juggling bills." He laughed bitterly. "I'm an accountant, Mom. I should have seen it." People in love often don't see what they don't want to see. Is that your way of saying I was an idiot? You weren't an idiot, Michael. You were manipulated by someone who was very good at manipulation. He was quiet for a moment. "Her lawyer called me yesterday. Brittany wants to settle the divorce quickly. She's offering to walk away from everything, no alimony, no division of assets. She just wants it done. Why the rush? I think she's found someone new, someone with money. Her Instagram is full of photos with some guy who drives a Mercedes and wears a Rolex." I thought about Brittany moving from relationship to relationship, always looking for someone to solve her financial problems, always running from her own choices. "Do you feel sorry for her?" I asked. Michael considered. "A little, but mostly I feel sorry for whoever she's with now, because she hasn't changed Mom. She's just found a new mark." "That's very insightful. 6 months of therapy will do that." He smiled, but it was sad. "My therapist asked me something last week. She asked what I was getting out of the relationship with Brittany." "What did you say?" "That Brittany made me feel needed. Important. Like I was rescuing her from something." He met my eyes. "But really, I think I just wanted to be the hero of my own story. And you can't be a hero when your mother is still taking care of herself, still independent, still strong." The observation hit me hard. "Michael, it's true, Mom. Part of me resented that you didn't need me, that you'd survived Dad's death, raised me alone, built a whole life without falling apart. It made me feel unnecessary." "You were never unnecessary," I said firmly. "You're my son. I love you. That has nothing to do with need." "I know that now, but at 20, at 30, at 35, I didn't understand it. So when Brittany came along and needed me, or pretended to need me, it felt like finally I had a purpose." We sat with that truth between us. "Your therapist is good," I said finally. "She really is. You'd like her, actually. She reminds me of you." After coffee, Michael walked me to my car. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you seeing someone, that guy who picked you up last night?" I felt my face flush. "You were watching my house." "No, I was driving by on my way home from the gym. I saw a man at your door with flowers." He grinned. "So who is he?" "His name is Frank. He's a retired teacher. We met at the legal aid clinic." Is it serious? Michael, it's been 3 dates. But you like him. I thought about Frank's gentle humor, his respect for my independence, the way he talked about his late wife without shame or awkwardness. Yes, I admitted. I like him. Michael hugged me tight. Good. You deserve to be happy, Mom. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. Coming from my son, those words meant everything. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Jennifer Sullivan, a woman's voice professional and clipped. Speaking. My name is Detective Sarah Reeves with the Denver Police Department. I'm calling about Brittany Hayes. I understand she's your former daughter-in-law. My heart stopped. Is she all right? She's fine physically, but she's been arrested for credit card fraud and identity theft. She listed you as a character reference on some paperwork. I'm calling to verify some information. What? Detective Reeves explained. Brittany had opened credit cards in other people's names, used stolen social security numbers, racked up over $200,000 in fraudulent charges. One of the victims was her current boyfriend, the detective said. He discovered she'd opened 3 cards in his name without his knowledge. When he confronted her, she tried to claim he'd given her permission. He pressed charges. I sat down heavily. How can I help? Did Brittany Hayes ever have access to your financial information, social security number, credit cards, bank accounts? I thought back to the 3 years she'd lived in my house. Had I been careless with my mail, my documents, possibly, I admitted. She lived with me for 3 years. I can't say for certain she never saw my information. I'd recommend pulling your credit report immediately. Check for any accounts you didn't open. After we hung up, I did exactly that. And there it was. A department store card opened 8 months ago in my name. Balance $4,700. All charges at high-end boutiques. Brittany had stolen my identity. I called Michael immediately. She what? His voice was sharp with shock. I explained about the detective's call, the credit card, the fraud charges. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd... I know you didn't. I took a deep breath. I need to file a police report. Will you come with me? Of course. I'll be there in 20 minutes. At the police station, we met Detective Reeves in person. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. Mrs. Sullivan, I have to ask, did you give Brittany Hayes permission to open this account? Absolutely not. I didn't even know it existed until an hour ago. Would you be willing to press charges? I looked at Michael. He nodded slowly. Yes, I said. I'll press charges. Detective Reeves handed me paperwork. This is actually helpful for our case. Brittany's been claiming all the accounts were opened with permission. If we can prove she did this to you, someone she lived with and had easy access to, it strengthens the pattern of behavior. How many people did she steal from? I asked. So far 7 that we know of, including her current boyfriend, her former roommate from college, and 2 of her co-workers. The total fraud is over $200,000. Michael made a sound like he'd been punched. I was married to her, he said. How did I not see this? She was very good at hiding it, Detective Reeves said. Most fraud perpetrators are. They're skilled manipulators. 3 days later, Brittany called me. Jennifer, please, I need to talk to you. Her voice was different, smaller, scared. I don't think that's a good idea, Brittany. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm not asking you to drop the charges. I need to explain. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. Neutral ground, public place. And I called Sarah Mitchell first, letting her know where I'd be and when. Brittany looked terrible. The polished, put-together woman I'd known was gone. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. No makeup. She'd aged 10 years in 6 months. Thank you for coming, she said, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup that shook slightly. I said nothing, just waited. I know you hate me, she began. I don't hate you, Brittany, but I don't trust you either. She nodded. Fair. I wanted you to understand why I did what I did. You stole from me. There's no explanation that justifies that. I know. But I want to try to explain anyway. She took a shaky breath. I grew up poor, Jennifer. Like really poor. Food stamps, eviction notices, my mom working 3 jobs. I swore I'd never be like that. I'd never struggle. So you stole, I said flatly. So I made bad choices, she corrected. I got my first credit card at 18. It felt like freedom, like finally I could have nice things be someone. And it spiraled. By the time I met Michael, I was drowning in debt. And you saw him as a life raft. Yes, she met my eyes. I saw him as a way out. He talked about his childhood home, about his mom who'd raised him alone. I assumed you had money, that the house was worth something. I thought if I married Michael eventually you could convince him to sell the house and pay off your debts. Yes. At least she was being honest now. When I realized you weren't just going to hand over the house, I panicked, she continued. The debt collectors were calling. My parents had cut me off. I was terrified. So I opened that card in your name, just one, I told myself, just to get through. But it wasn't just one. No, it never is. She laughed bitterly. I'm an addict, Jennifer. Not to drugs or alcohol, to spending, to the feeling of buying something new, something beautiful, something that makes me feel like I'm not that poor kid anymore. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but then I remembered the months of manipulation, the casual cruelty, the way she'd spoken about me to her friends. I'm sorry about what you went through, Brittany, but that doesn't excuse what you did to me, to Michael, to all those other people. I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for you to understand that I'm not evil. I'm just broken. We're all broken, Brittany. That doesn't give us permission to break other people. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. My lawyer says I'll probably go to jail. 2 to 5 years, maybe. And I deserve it. I know I do. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I stood up. I hope you get help, Brittany. Real help. Not just for the debt, but for whatever makes you think stuff is more important than people. Will you tell Michael? Will you tell him I'm sorry? Tell him yourself. He deserves to hear it from you. I left her sitting there crying into her coffee, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just a tired sort of closure. Spring turned to summer. My roses bloomed spectacularly that year, the best they'd been since Tom planted them. Deep red blooms that perfumed the entire garden. I spent my weekends there, hands in the soil, face turned to the sun. Frank helped, sometimes his teacher's patience perfect for learning the rhythms of pruning and deadheading. Tom would have liked you, I told him one Saturday as we worked together. How do you know? Because you don't mind getting your hands dirty. Because you listen more than you talk. Because you make me laugh. He kissed my forehead, leaving a smudge of dirt. Sarah would have liked you too. She'd appreciate how you don't take any nonsense. We were building something real, slow, steady. No rush, no pressure. Just 2 people who'd loved and lost, learning to love again. Michael came to dinner once a month now. Sometimes he brought his new girlfriend Amanda, a lawyer he'd met through his therapist's recommendation. She was smart, independent, and had her own fully paid-off condo. She doesn't need me to rescue her, Michael had said the first time he brought her. Which is terrifying and wonderful. I liked Amanda immediately. She called Michael on his tendencies to people-please. She had her own opinions and wasn't afraid to voice them. And she treated me with respect, not as an obstacle or a resource, but as Michael's mother. One evening after dinner, Michael and I sat on the back porch while Amanda and Frank did dishes inside. I heard about Brittany's sentencing, I said, 3 years. Yeah, Michael was quiet. Part of me feels bad for her. Part of me is just relieved it's over. Both can be true. She wrote me a letter from jail, apologizing, explaining, asking if we could talk after she gets out. What did you say? Nothing yet. My therapist says I should wait, make sure I'm in a good place before I respond. But honestly, Mom, I don't know if I'll ever be in a place where I want to talk to her again. That's okay too. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. He looked at me. Have you forgiven her? I thought about it. Really thought. I'm working on it, I said finally. Not for her sake, for mine. Because holding on to anger is exhausting. You're stronger than me. I've had more practice. 63 years of practice, actually. We laughed, and it felt good. That fall, I made a decision. I called Michael and asked him to come over. Alone. When he arrived, I was in my office, the small room off the kitchen that used to be Tom's study. Sit down, I told him. He sat looking nervous. Am I in trouble? No, I want to talk to you about the house. His face paled. Mom, I don't want Just listen. I pulled out a folder. I've been talking to my estate lawyer. I've updated my will. Mom. Michael, I'm 63 years old. I'm healthy. I plan to live another 30 years, but I need to be realistic. When I die and not before, this house will go to you. I don't deserve. Stop. I held up my hand. You made mistakes. You owned them. You got help. You've spent 6 months proving to me that you've changed. That's worth something. But the house is still mine. Will be mine until I die. The will is very clear on that. But after, it's yours. To keep, to sell, to do whatever you want with it. But Michael, if I ever get sick, if I ever need care, I've put provisions in place. You cannot sell this house while I'm alive. Even if I have dementia, even if I'm in a nursing home, this house stays mine. Do you understand? Yes. And one more thing. I've also set aside money in a trust for your children, whenever you have them, for their education, because Tom and I always believed in investing in the next generation. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Mom, I don't know what to say. Say you'll never let anyone make you feel like I'm a burden again. Say you'll stand up for yourself and the people you love. Say you'll be the man I raised you to be. I will. I promise I will. We hugged, and it felt like the final piece of healing clicking into place. 2 months later, on a crisp December morning, I got a call from Detective Reeves. Mrs. Sullivan, I wanted to let you know that Brittany Hayes has been ordered to pay restitution to all her victims. You'll be receiving $4,700 plus interest over the next few years as she makes payments. Thank you for letting me know. Also, she asked me to pass along a message. She said to tell you she's going to therapy in prison, working on the underlying issues. She said your right stuff isn't more important than people. I was surprised to feel a small sense of satisfaction at that. I hope she means it, I said. Me too, Mrs. Sullivan, me too. That afternoon I was in my garden when Frank found me. There you are, I've been calling. Sorry, phone's inside. What's up? I have something to ask you. He looked nervous, which wasn't like him. Okay. My daughter is getting married next June, in Seattle. And I was wondering, would you come with me? Meet my family? Meeting his family. That was big, real, a statement of intent. I'd love to, I said. His face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Really? Really? He kissed me right there in the garden, surrounded by Tom's roses that had finally finished their season. And it felt right. Not like replacing Tom, nothing could do that, but like honoring his memory by continuing to live fully. That evening I sat in my living room, my reclaimed, rearranged, perfectly me living room, and took stock. 6 months ago I'd been fighting for my home, my dignity, my right to exist in my own space. Now I had all of that, and more. My book club met here monthly. My garden club came for tea. Frank and I cooked dinner together on weekends. Michael and Amanda visited regularly. My house was filled with life again. Real life. Not the strained, tense existence of the Brittany years, but genuine warmth and laughter and love. I'd also started a new volunteer project helping seniors at the legal aid clinic understand their rights. Property law, estate planning, elder abuse prevention. You're basically teaching people to be like you, Linda from book club had said. Stubborn and unstealable. Exactly, I'd replied, because the world needed more women who knew their worth, who stood their ground, who refused to be diminished just because society decided they were too old. 1 year to the day after Michael and Brittany moved out, I hosted Thanksgiving at my house. Michael and Amanda were there. Amanda's parents, who'd become friends of mine. Frank and his daughter visiting from Seattle. My sister Pat, who'd flown in from Phoenix. My book club friends. My garden club friends. 23 people crammed into my dining room, spilling over into the living room, laughing and talking and celebrating. At one point, Michael stood up to make a toast. To my mom, he said, raising his glass. Who taught me this year that strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about knowing your worth and defending it. Who showed me that love sometimes means setting boundaries, and who proved that 63 is definitely not too old to start over. Everyone cheered. I felt my face flush. Also, Michael continued, Amanda and I have an announcement. He looked at her. She nodded, smiling. We're pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother mom. The room erupted in congratulations and hugs. I hugged Michael tight. Tom would be so proud, I whispered. Of me or you? Both of us. Later that night, after everyone had left and Frank had gone home, his own place, his own space, we weren't rushing things. I walked through my quiet house. The oak table my mother had given me now bearing the happy scars of a dinner party. The couch Tom had loved reupholstered but still sturdy. The rose garden visible through the window dormant for winter but waiting to bloom again. This house had witnessed my greatest joys and deepest sorrows. It had been my fortress when I needed protection and my sanctuary when I needed peace. And it was mine. Not because I'd inherited it or because someone gave it to me. Mine because I'd fought for it. Because I'd refused to let anyone take it from me. I thought about Brittany serving her sentence, hopefully learning that people matter more than possessions. I thought about Michael building a life with Amanda, preparing to be a father. I thought about Frank, who made me laugh, and didn't mind that I still talked to Tom sometimes. I thought about myself, 64 years old, still working, still volunteering, still growing roses, and building relationships, and refusing to be invisible. "We did it, Tom," I whispered to the empty house that wasn't really empty at all. "We built something that lasts." And somewhere I swear I felt him smile.